This is why you can't forget someone. Okay, buckle up because we're about to dive deep into the messy, confusing, and sometimes downright annoying world of why you can't seem to shake that one person from your brain. We're talking about that ex, that friend you drifted from, that celebrity crush, whoever it is that keeps popping up in your thoughts when you least expect it. We're going to explore the psychology behind it, all inspired by the genius of Carl Jung, but without the stuffy academic language. Think of this as a heart-to-heart with a friend who also happens to know a bit about the human mind. The uninvited guest in your head. Ever been there? You're chilling, maybe listening to music, maybe just trying to fall asleep, and BM, they're back. It could be a tiny flicker of a memory, a full-blown daydream, or just a persistent sense that something's unfinished. You might try to brush it off. Oh, it's just nostalgia, you tell yourself. It doesn't mean anything. You binge-watch Netflix, you hang out with friends, you try to bury the thoughts under a mountain of distractions. But like a persistent weed, they keep popping back up. And it's frustrating, right? You might even get angry at yourself. Why am I still thinking about them? You might think that if you just had closure, if you could just figure out what went wrong, the thoughts would finally stop. You believe if you distract yourself enough, you'll finally be free, but that's just it. The harder you try to silence them, the louder they become. That's where Jung's ideas come in handy. He believed that nothing in your unconscious mind is random. Thoughts aren't just stray bullets flying around. If someone keeps showing up in your head, it's because your mind is trying to tell you something, and maybe you need to listen to it. This person isn't just a memory, they are a symbol, a representation of something far greater than themselves. Think of your unconscious as a giant, messy attic filled with everything you've ever experienced. Every joy, every hurt, every half-formed idea. Some of that stuff is neatly organized in boxes. But other things, the really heavy stuff, keeps finding ways to tumble down the stairs until you finally pay attention to it. Jung believed that the things we resist the most are the very things that persist, that the mind does not let go of something it still needs to understand. And so the real question isn't why you're still thinking about them, but what part of yourself is being reflected in them. The real question, then, isn't why you're thinking about them, but what part of yourself is being reflected in them. Because sometimes the people who occupy our thoughts the most are not just people. They're mirrors showing us something we have yet to recognize within ourselves. And this is where it all begins. The mirror effect. So, let's get real for a second. What if the reason you're stuck on this person has absolutely nothing to do with them? What if they're just a reflection, an echo of something within you that your mind is trying to understand? Jung believed that we don't see people as they truly are, you know? We see them through the tinted glasses of our own experiences, our own wounds, our own secret desires. In other words, we project parts of ourselves onto them, often without even realizing it. Think of it like this. You're watching a movie, but you're also projecting your own emotions and experiences onto the characters. Projection is a super powerful psychological force that shapes all of our relationships. It happens when we take something buried inside, an insecurity, an unmet need, a part of ourselves we don't want to acknowledge, and we assign it to someone else. We think we're obsessed with them, but really, we're obsessed with what they represent to us. It's not about them. It's about what they awaken within us. Ever met someone you instantly admired, felt drawn to in a way that felt almost out of your control? Maybe they have a confidence you secretly wish you had. Maybe they possess a sense of freedom, a way of living unapologetically that you crave, but have never allowed yourself to embrace. Maybe they're incredibly creative, or kind, or adventurous, qualities you admire but feel like you lack. And so your mind fixates on them, not because they hold the answer, but because they remind you of something missing in yourself. So your mind fixates on them, not because they hold some magical key to your happiness, but because they remind you of something you're missing in yourself. They embody something you've disowned, suppressed, or just plain forgotten. But there's a darker side to projection, too. Think about the people who've hurt you the most. The ones you can't seem to forgive, even years later. You replay conversations, relive the pain, analyze every little detail, searching for something you missed. You might think it's because they're evil, or manipulative, or whatever. But Jung would say that this fixation isn't about them. It's about the part of you that was triggered, the wound that was exposed, the fear that was activated. Maybe they reminded you of a past betrayal. Maybe they triggered your fear of abandonment. Maybe they made you feel inadequate in some way. And until you recognize what that is, your mind will keep circling back, trying to solve the puzzle. So ask yourself, what does this person represent to you? What qualities do they have that stir something inside you? What emotions do they bring to the surface? Because the truth is the thoughts won't stop until you stop looking outward and start looking within. The truth is the thoughts won't stop until you stop looking outward and start looking within. The person you're thinking about is just a mirror, and the reflection is trying to show you something important. The archetype connection, deeper than you think. Okay, things are about to get a little more interesting, because sometimes these lingering thoughts aren't just about projection. They're tied to something even older, something that's been shaping your relationships long before you even met this person. We're talking about archetypes. Archetypes are universal patterns of behavior and personality that are buried deep in the human psyche. Think of them as pre-programmed characters that show up in myths, legends, and, well, your own relationships. These are the hidden forces of archetypes, the universal patterns that dictate who we connect with. And why not all thoughts are just thoughts? Some of them run deeper, tracing back to patterns older than you can remember. Ever wondered why certain people leave such a huge impact on you, while others fade effortlessly into the background? Why some connections feel almost fated, as if they were meant to happen? Jung believed this wasn't random. He argued that our strongest emotional attachments aren't just about the people themselves. They're shaped by archetypes, universal patterns buried deep within the human psyche. Archetypes are like invisible blueprints guiding the way we see the world, the way we love, the way we attach. They're the unspoken forces that pull us towards certain people while pushing us away from others. Jung identified many archetypes, like the mother, the hero, the shadow, but the most relevant to our discussion are the anima and the animus. These are the unconscious feminine side in men and the unconscious masculine side in women, respectively. They represent the qualities that we tend to suppress or project onto others. And the most powerful of these, the anima, and the animus, the unconscious feminine within the male psyche, and the unconscious masculine within the female psyche. When someone keeps resurfacing in your mind, it might be because they've awakened this deep, internal part of you. They might embody the qualities of your anima or animus, the ones you haven't fully integrated into your own personality. Think about the people you've been most drawn to in your life. Do they follow a pattern? Do they seem to share certain traits or evoke similar emotions? This isn't just coincidence. Your unconscious mind has been shaping your attachments long before you were ever aware of it. Some people embody the qualities you seek, the energy that feels familiar. Others bring out something buried in you, old wounds, unresolved conflicts, deep-seated fears. That's why some connections feel beyond reason, almost mythical, as if they carry a meaning we can't quite grasp. And perhaps in a way they do, because whether we realize it or not, we're all seeking something through others: wholeness, understanding, healing. We're looking for someone to complete us, to fill a void. And this is why certain people linger in our minds long after they're gone. They didn't just enter our lives, they activated something within us. But there's another side to this. Sometimes these attachments aren't about what we need, but about what we lack. The people who consume our thoughts may symbolize the part of us we have yet to embrace, the strength we've denied ourselves, the confidence we never claimed, the love we never fully gave to ourselves. Jung believed that love and obsession often have very little to do with the person we're fixated on and everything to do with what they represent to us. And until we recognize that, until we understand what they mirror back to us, our minds will keep holding on to them, trying to make sense of what was never just about them in the first place. So, are you starting to see how this works? It's not about them, it's about you. And you're not going crazy, you're just experiencing the anima or animus, unearthing the wounds, the real reason they're stuck. Let's dig even deeper, shall we? Because even deeper than archetypes and attachments lies something else, something even more powerful, the unhealed wound. Those wounds we carry, the silent fears that shape our emotions, the subconscious patterns that keep us stuck in the past. Those old hurts, those nagging doubts, those silent fears that shape our emotions and subconscious patterns that keep us stuck in the past. Until we face those wounds, until we confront the real reason why certain people stay in our minds, we'll keep searching for answers in all the wrong places. Some thoughts don't just linger, they grip you, pull you back into places you thought you had left behind. It's as if no matter how much you try to let go, some invisible force keeps you tethered, keeps you wondering, keeps you remembering. Here's something most people don't realize. The reason you can't stop thinking about them isn't because of who they are. It's because of what they wounded inside of you. Jung believed that the things we try hardest to suppress are the very things that end up controlling us. That's why certain people become imprinted in our minds. They didn't just walk into our lives, they triggered something we've been carrying for a long time. Maybe it was a fear of abandonment. Maybe it was a wound of rejection. Maybe it was an ache for validation that you didn't even realize was still there. And when someone activates that part of you, when they bring an old wound to the surface, your mind holds on to them. Not because they're special, but because your psyche is trying to heal. Think about it this way. When a physical wound is left untreated, your body keeps sending pain signals to let you know that something isn't right. The same thing happens with emotional wounds. If you can't stop thinking about someone, it's because there's a part of you that is still hurting. Maybe they left without explanation, and your mind keeps replaying everything, searching for closure. Maybe they made you feel unworthy, and now you're trapped in a cycle of trying to prove something, if not to them, then to yourself. Maybe they reminded you of something you've been running from. The mind doesn't hold on to people, it holds on to unfinished emotions, unspoken words, unresolved pain. And until you address the root of it, your thoughts will keep circling back, trying to make sense of what your heart still doesn't understand. The answer isn't in obsessing over the person, but in turning inward, tracing the pain back to its origin, understanding why this specific wound exists, and finally giving yourself what you've been seeking from someone else. So what is it? What is the wound beneath the thoughts? Is it a longing for connection, a fear of being forgotten, a part of yourself you never fully embraced? Because until you stop asking why they won't leave your mind and start asking what inside you still needs to be healed, the thoughts will never truly fade. What is the wound beneath the thoughts? Is it a longing for connection, a fear of being forgotten, a part of yourself you never fully embraced? Because until you stop asking why they won't leave your mind and start asking what inside you still needs to be healed, the thoughts will never truly fade. Here's the hardest truth. Sometimes, the person you can't stop thinking about is simply a distraction from the real work that needs to be done. And that work isn't about them, it's about you. Because the moment you face the wound, the moment you acknowledge what was never about them in the first place, is the moment you start to reclaim your mind, your heart, and your own sense of peace. Meeting your shadow, the hidden player. But before you can let go, before you can truly free yourself, there's something even more powerful you need to understand: the shadow self. This is the part of you that you've been avoiding, the hidden force that shapes not just your thoughts, but your entire life. There's a part of you that you don't fully know, a part you've pushed away, ignored, buried beneath distractions, relationships, and endless thoughts about people who should no longer matter. Jung called this the shadow self, the hidden side of you made up of everything you've denied, rejected, or left unclaimed. It's the repository of all the traits, emotions, and experiences that you deem unacceptable, both to yourself and to society. Your shadow is made up of everything you deem negative about yourself, or that society deems negative that you repress. Whether you realize it or not, this shadow is shaping your thoughts, your emotions, and yes, even your attachments to people you can't seem to forget. What if the person who won't leave your mind isn't there because you love them or because they're special, but because they're showing you something about yourself that you refuse to see? What if you were being reminded of a trait you didn't accept about yourself? Jung believed that the relationships that affect us most deeply, the ones that leave lasting imprints, the ones we obsess over, are often the ones that bring us face to face with our own unconscious. The relationships that affect us most deeply, the ones that leave lasting imprints, the ones we obsess over are often the ones that bring us face to face with our own unconscious. Sometimes what keeps you hooked on someone is not their presence, but the way they awakened a part of you that has been hidden for too long. Ever noticed how certain people evoke extreme emotions in you? Someone may make you feel insecure, abandoned, unworthy, or desperate for validation. Another may make you feel alive, inspired, or like you're finally understood. The reason they have such a strong effect on you isn't because of who they are, but because of what they reflect back to you. They stir something within you, something that was always there, just waiting to be seen. Maybe the person you can't stop thinking about represents a trait you've suppressed. Maybe they embody the freedom, confidence, or emotional depth you've denied in yourself. Maybe they exposed a wound you never wanted to admit was still open. This is why certain people haunt us, because they force us to confront what we've been avoiding. Jung believed that unless you integrate your shadow, unless you acknowledge and accept the hidden parts of yourself, you will remain trapped in cycles of longing, attachment, and fixation. Your unconscious will continue placing mirrors in front of you, using other people as reflections until you finally recognize what it's trying to reveal. Jung believed that unless you integrate your shadow, unless you acknowledge and accept the hidden parts of yourself, you will remain trapped in cycles of longing, attachment, and fixation. Your unconscious will continue placing mirrors in front of you, using other people as reflections until you finally recognize what it's trying to reveal. What is this person showing you about you? What is it about them that creates such a strong emotional reaction? What part of yourself have you been unwilling to face? Because the moment you stop focusing on them and start focusing on what they represent within you, everything changes. Individuation, the path to freedom. You've come this far, so you've likely realized something profound. The person who won't leave your mind isn't just a person. They are a symbol, a reflection, a messenger of something buried deep within you. And now that you've seen the projection, the archetypes, the wounds, and the shadow, it's time to ask the real question. How do you finally let go? Carl Jung believed that true healing comes through a process called individuation. This is the journey of becoming a fully integrated and conscious version of yourself. It's about understanding yourself, flaws and all, and not being afraid of your shadow. Individuation isn't about forgetting, suppressing, or forcing yourself to move on. It's about recognizing why this person held such power over you in the first place and reclaiming that power for yourself. Letting go is not an act of resistance, it's an act of understanding. Most people try to move on by distracting themselves, by jumping into another relationship, by convincing themselves that they no longer care. But thoughts don't disappear just because you ignore them. If someone is still occupying your mind, it means a piece of your psyche is still entangled with them. The only way to truly free yourself is to extract the lesson your unconscious is trying to teach you. Most people try to move on by distracting themselves, by running into another relationship, by convincing themselves that they no longer care. But thoughts don't disappear just because you ignore them. If someone is still occupying your mind, it means a piece of your psyche is still entangled with them. The only way to truly free yourself is to extract the lesson your unconscious is trying to teach you. Maybe they awakened a longing in you, a desire for love, validation, or connection that you haven't fully given yourself. Maybe they exposed a wound you never wanted to face. Maybe they embodied something you've been suppressing, a part of you that's been waiting to be acknowledged. The key to letting go is not to push these realizations away, but to integrate them. To take back the parts of yourself that you projected onto them, to nurture the wounds they revealed, to recognize that they were never the source of what you were seeking. Maybe they awakened a longing in you, a desire for love, validation, or connection that you haven't fully given yourself. Maybe they exposed a wound you never wanted to face. Maybe they embodied something you've been suppressing, a part of you that's been waiting to be acknowledged. The key to letting go is not to push these realizations away, but to integrate them, to take back the parts of yourself that you projected onto them, to nurture the wounds they revealed, to recognize that they were never the source of what you were seeing. Jung would tell you that the reason you can't stop thinking about them is because you have given them ownership over a part of your soul. And the only way to truly move forward is to call that part of yourself back. The reason you can't stop thinking about them is because you have given them ownership over a part of your soul, and the only way to truly move forward is to call that part of yourself back. This is what individuation is about, learning to become whole, to no longer search for missing pieces in another person, but to find them within yourself. So instead of asking, why am I still thinking about them? Ask, what do I need to reclaim? Instead of trying to forget, try to understand. Instead of waiting for closure, create it within yourself. So instead of asking, why am I still thinking about them? Ask, what do I need to reclaim? Instead of trying to forget, try to understand. Instead of waiting for closure, create it within yourself. The moment you stop seeing them as the answer, the moment you recognize that the power to move forward has always been in your hands, is the moment their presence in your mind begins to fade. The moment you stop seeing them as the answer, the moment you recognize that the power to move forward has always been in your hands, is the moment their presence in your mind begins to fade. Because you're no longer lost in the illusion that someone else holds the key to your peace. You see now that the person you were searching for was never them. It was always you. There comes a moment when you realize the thoughts are no longer about them, the memories, the longing, the questions, they were never truly about that person at all. They were the breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. Conclusion. There comes a moment when you realize the thoughts are no longer about them. The memories, the longing, the questions were never truly about that person at all. They were the breadcrumbs leading you back to yourself. Carl Jung showed us that what lingers in our minds is a reflection of what lingers in our souls, and the moment you stop chasing ghosts and start embracing the lesson, the weight begins to lift. You were never haunted by them. You were being called to heal, and now you know exactly what you need to do. It's time to set yourself free. Carl Jung showed us that what lingers in our minds is a reflection of what lingers in our souls. The moment you stop chasing ghosts and start embracing the lesson, the weight begins to lift. You were never haunted by them. You were being called to heal. And now you know exactly what you need to do. It's time to set yourself free. Remember, this is a journey, not a destination. Be patient with yourself, be kind to yourself, and keep exploring the depths of your own mind. You have the power to break free from these cycles and create a more fulfilling and authentic life. Now go out there and start living it. That's all, folks. Now go out there and be the best, healed version of yourself that you can be.